Hi, this is Yadi Caro, and welcome to another episode of the Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast. Communications are so tricky. When I ask people and teams I work with, what skill do you want to improve? I often hear, I want to be a better speaker or a better writer. The thing is, then, when we try to become that better writer or better speaker, we think eloquent long speeches with convoluted words. But what if the secret ingredients involved just being you and keeping it super simple? This is what I have learned from Dr. Mimi Goss, who was one of my professors at Harvard University, where she teaches. Dr. Goss is the author of What is Your One Sentence? How to Be Heard in the Age of Short Attention Spans. She's a communications consultant, a former reporter, and a media trainer whose clients and students have included heads of state, diplomats, military officials, corporate executives. Today, you will learn from her the actions you can take now to become a better communicator. Let's listen. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here on the podcast with me, Mimi.
Yadi, thank you so much for inviting me.
You were my professor at Harvard, and that was, I must say, one of the classes that I really truly enjoyed, because making the experience remote of being able to work together as a team, either we had to practice our public speaking, writing, just to be better communicators all in the span of a few weeks. So it was great, and I really wanted the audience to get to know a little bit more of what you teach, and also to get to know you. And so I have a lot of questions for you today. But first of all, in terms of your career, because you started, how did you start your career, and why do you decided to choose in the area of like communications?
Well, let's see. Many,
Mhm.
many, many years ago, I taught eighth grade English
Uh-huh.
for 1 year, and actually, with that, I learned that from my wonderful practice teacher that you have to engage people. That's the only way that people will care. You
Mhm.
can't give them lists. They need to be engaged. So, and then I started as a journalist. I had never taken a journalism class, and I just started it and started submitting things, and in the Boston area, and I got things published, and I was I was an on-camera entertainment reporter for Warner Cable TV, which was like just in its infancy, and uh, I just learned it that you need to tell a story.
Mhm.
And like you said before we started, when you're a journalist, you're just curious about people. You're curious about everything. And even if you're a fairly shy person, and I can waver, I'm usually outgoing, but sometimes I can be shy, you
Mhm.
just want to know. So you will go up to random people and ask them outrageous questions because because you're just interested, and you don't mean to be rude or anything. You're just interested. So that's how I started. And then actually, um, an editor of a newspaper said, "Do you want to teach journalism at Boston College?" I go, "Okay." And I was only a little bit younger than the students. And then I thought, oh gosh, I guess I better get my master's degree. So I got that in journalism at Boston University. Then I got a job at Harvard and at the Kennedy School. And I thought, oh, I guess I better get my PhD. So I got that also, and used Widener Library, which is just extraordinary. Uh, and then, yeah, I finally just thought, I noticed that people were using some of my ideas, and I wasn't particularly being credited with
All right.
them. And I thought, okay, I think it's time to write a book. So I wrote a book. Yeah.
Yes, and the story. I want to delve into the book, which this talks about the concept of the one sentence. And you mentioned something at the beginning in regards of not giving people lists and being able to engage them. And as a lot of our listeners are working like the project management field in the IT industry, so a lot of the communication is like quote unquote boring, technical, and that sort of thing. So how do you keep, what is it, an aspect of keeping people engaged? How do we do that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think because I know some people even don't even like their jobs. Thankfully, I love my job teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And because I get to teach, work with, I don't even teach, I work with people like you who are so extraordinary and so high level, and it's just fun and it's interesting. I know people with some tedious jobs, uh, they strive to find something interesting that day at work.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I could suggest is in that one project that you have to do, find the one aspect of it that interests you and go for that, and then approach the project that way, because we only, I think I think we only do great work from our passions. And if we're just doing it like in a half-hearted way, then we only get half-hearted results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is a way to keep people engaged, kind of finding that of any like what and interests us from that particular thing, and try to communicate it to other or see if the others are engaged as well.
Yes, and you can find like-minded people in whatever field you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll find some little aspect of it that seems really quirky, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll love it. And so you can connect on that level. I mean, and that's easy to say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but if people have a really stressful job that's just monotonous,
Mm-hmm.
that is hard. And
Yeah.
and maybe you need to have it. People need to have an outside outlet of something that strikes where that they're creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that definitely helps with everything else, like with to do your job better as well, do your daily job too.
Yes.
And so let's talk about the concept, because your book, What is Your One Sentence? That was one of the toughest things that we had to do in class in terms of finding our one sentence, because we think in order to communicate, you have to be, talking on and on and on. And you taught us a lot in terms of how do we find and find a one sentence. How do you came up with that concept?
It was actually teaching at Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught for many, many, many years at the Kennedy School. So whether it's the Kennedy School, I've done coaching at the business school, and I love teaching at the extension school and the summer school, because people, I, I think there's a, I think people come with their families, they come with their experience, and it's very rich. The extension school, I love the Kennedy School, but the extension school and the summer school are very rich. It was because people would come to me. For instance, I have it in my book.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a team of military officers, which you can relate to
Mm-hmm.
because you work with the military. Three really, really smart people, and I
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to be the first editor of the writing part of it. They would have a content editor who would be a military official, and they gave me 93 pages, and I said, I read 93 pages. I have no idea what this is
I can
about.
relate. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what is your one sentence? So I kept saying it over and over again, because I go, look, if I'm the Secretary of Defense and I'm sitting in my office, I go, I'll give you 5 minutes, but I'm really going to only give you 1 minute, because I'm going to be on my cell phone. My assistant's going to be walking in. How are you going to engage me for that 1 minute? I have 20 things at least on my desk that morning. So you need to do the work. When you have a project, you need to do the work to decipher, okay, what is this about? What is the one sentence? They don't have time. And that's why they hired you, or they respect you, because you have the expertise. You can do that later, but they need to know what they need to do and what they need to know in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So how it is that it's very challenging, and I can relate that a lot of documents that we see, even PowerPoint presentations, everything is about going expanding about a concept, because I think by expanding you get clarity. But the opposite is true. And what are the good elements of a good one sentence?
So I have a tough agent in New York. She's wonderful because she's tough. And when I was first submitting it to her, she goes, "Well, you need to write a list." I go, "About what?" And she goes, "Well, how do you do a one sentence?" I go, "Well, you just do it." And she goes, "No, no, no, that's not good enough." So I analyzed literally hundreds of sentences that I thought were really striking. One small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. The customer is always right, things like that. And I came up with a list of 12 components that I thought were in all of them. But the three most important ones were people, action, and drama or wit. People want to hear about people. They want to hear something's happening. And there needs to be an element. And when I say drama or wit, it doesn't need to be dramatic or witty, but something that's new, that's got a little bit of it's got some sparkle to it, that it's got some adventure or something to it that makes the reader go, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." Just a little extra. So that's what I would say the three main elements are. And it has to also say in a nutshell what it is you want to say. It can't be different. It has to be the same as the overall message.
So people, action, and drama. I like that part of and the challenges of making that one sentence. So how do we know we are on the right track of building that one sentence?
I think it's hard because you have to go, what is important to me about this project? What did I learn from 90 pages that I wrote? What is it? And it needs to be something a little bit new, because people don't want to read. You wrote for a newspaper. People don't write for an old paper. They write for a newspaper. So it has to be new. There has to be, and if it's not new, it should be something that's a new twist on an old topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where the real work comes for the person who's the speaker or the writer. What is it? When you look at all, and as a journalist too, you can go in with a preconceived notion about a story, but then you go to the story and you go, "Oh my gosh, it's completely different than I expected it was going to be." So you, as a good journalist, you have to write what you saw, not what you think. So it's that also. Look at what is the information you have and what's the most important information in a nutshell, one sentence.
That's wonderful and very practical for any situation at work, as you mentioned, with the kind of briefings, communicating just an idea of selling a product at work. And now, in terms of the ability to become a public speaker, and based on your experience working internationally with multiple high-profile people, what are some of the characteristics that make a good person, a good public speaker?
First, I think you have to speak from your heart, because when people don't speak from their hearts, it looks fake. And even if you're a famous person, the audience can tell it's fake. And they might go along with it, but there's still something about it that's not ringing true for them. So it has to be from your heart, and the best part of your heart, and the best part of you also. And one of the things I say to clients, and I might have had it on a on a PowerPoint for your class, but my company, the motto is communicate your best. So when you go into a room, no matter if you're a famous person, you're not a famous person, and you're supposed to speak, think of who is the best person, the best version of you. And one of the tricks I suggest is think of a favorite person in your life, whether it's a grandparent or a mentor, or perhaps you had a horrible life and you didn't have any grandparent or mentor, but there's one person who believed in you. Imagine that they walk in the room. Make that person proud of you.
Hmm.
The words that you use, if you start to say the word no or never or not, can you flip it around and make it a positive instead?
Hmm.
Because people relate better to positive messages. And even the way you dress for the occasion, and the way you carry yourself, stand up straight or sit up straight, because when we all stand up straight and sit up straight, we look more elegant, and we can breathe more naturally and more from our diaphragm, which is where we have to breathe if we're going to speak in public. And yeah, speak from the best of yourself, I think. And the people that I've worked with, yeah, that's what I would say. The best of them, they spoke from the best of themselves. Even on your worst day, you can still find something, and find something that excites you about that day when you walk in. Another tip I give to people, I think I might have said it in your class, is if you're going into a scary group of people, you think they're scary. First of all, they're all just people. And just go in there, and if it's a group that you can go and shake hands with people, shake hands with a few people, introduce yourself, ask them their names. Who are they? Ask them something about themselves. You just made a friend. So when you look out from the audience, you have a friend.
That's wonderful. I love all those advice that you gave in terms of having kind of relating to the audience by having a friend or thinking of a person in the audience, perhaps that is a person that you want to make proud. I love those things as well. And so also that naturality, being natural when we speak is so difficult. It just seems like we have to express a message or kind of like read it out loud. Are there any do's and don'ts in terms of the when it comes to either memorizing a speech or reading the speech? What are some of your suggestions there?
I think it would depend on the situation. I think it's better if you can just say the speech.
Mm-hmm.
If it's better.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it's a formal setting and you're an official and every word that you say is, people watch it, every word, I would say have a script, make it really big type. There are ways of doing that, or you can, some, if you're very famous, you'll have a teleprompter, uh, and practice, rehearse, and then underline a couple of words, and they might not be the expected word. Underline the words where you just go, this is the word. Take a breath at an unexpected place.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure before you go out there, you really calm yourself, go to the restroom, do your power poses like Amy Cuddy said in her colleagues at the business school. Uh, you know, just try to relax your spine.
Mm.
Again, stand up straight, speak from the middle of your body, not from your throat, because then you'll ruin your voice really quickly. And those are, yeah, and enjoy
Yeah.
yourself. Enjoy yourself. How lucky are you to be in front of this group of people?
That's great. Attitude. And as you're describing those things in terms of like stand up straight, I'm like, I find myself like standing up straight, adjusting at the desk here as well. Now, when it comes to writing, because also very challenging thing to do for a lot of us in terms of what are some of the things that people should do more when writing, either for work or just for anything in general? Because sometimes we also seem to expand ourselves into like 90 pages. Is the example you mentioned earlier. What are some of the good um, things that we need to do when it comes to writing?
It's pretty much the same as speaking, only you're writing it down.
Hmm.
And one tip that I would suggest for people who are nervous about writing is just start writing. Just keep a journal, and don't make it a formal journal. Just do, 10 minutes a morning, 2 minutes, even if you relax yourself by just writing out what you're scared of, or what the day is going to bring, or how to make the day better. By the end of that 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you're going to have an answer as to how to make your day better and what you want to focus on. And then in terms of the actual writing, I would say the biggest problem in academia is to think that you have to present yourself as, quote, smart.
Hmm.
and use long Latinate derivatives and use long academic words that only this particular audience understands, which is fine. However, that's not really going to engage your audience that much. It's going to be dry. And so I would again go back to what you trained as and I trained as a journalist. What do you want to say? What is this about? And then start writing. And the other trick is make it a speech instead. Imagine you're going to say it to people, say it out loud, and then write it down. And then fix your grammar and whatever. But say it out loud, because when we explain things to children, for instance, they understand. They
Hmm.
can even understand complicated concepts if you explain it to them in a clear way that doesn't make it overly complicated. So I would say don't divorce writing and speaking. It's basically the same. Writing is just written down.
Hmm. That's great, and the aspect of reading it aloud while we write to kind of make it sound like our voice is a great technique too. Are there differences when it comes to that we need to consider when it comes to either speaking with to the one-on-one or a couple people to like speaking to big audiences? Like, what are some of the suggestions, advice that we should follow when it comes to that aspect of communication in small versus big groups?
One of the things that you have talked about in your own podcast is empathy. And I think whether you're with one person or you're with a group of people, if you start with empathy, like what is this group dealing with today, right now, as a group? What are they possibly individually dealing with today as a group?
Mm-hmm.
Really find out what's on their minds if you can. And if it's one on one, check in with the person. How are you? Just maybe make it. And the other thing is to immediately make it a dialogue. It's always a give and take. It's always about them more than it's about you, if you really want to communicate effectively. So in a speech, it would be implicit. You'd have to do it implicitly because you are the person giving the speech. However, if you incorporate into your speech elements that your audience finds interesting and relevant and timely and urgent, then they're more apt to listen to you and have a give and take.
That's wonderful. Building that empathy, very important. And yeah, great advice. Because sometimes we think like we just go in, speak, but don't think about the other person necessarily. Now, in terms of some of your favorite either speakers, authors, could you share some of those?
Oh my goodness. So the late United Nations Secretary General Kofi
Mhm,
Annan,
mhm,
several Secretary General back, was the best speaker I ever saw in the Kennedy School of Government. And he gave a speech beginning to end about policy in Africa, 15 minutes. And uh, and he made a joke at the beginning, like to break the ice with a friend of his that was sitting in the front. And it showed me also that no matter how famous you are, you're still a little nervous. I
mhm.
don't know if he was nervous or not, but you break the ice with some little joke or something with somebody, the one friend he has in the audience. Let's see who else. Uh, former President Obama. I think he was a wonderful speaker, and he took complicated ideas and he distilled them. And he's also a wonderful writer. And I remember reading years ago, one of his professors in his undergraduate work said that he wrote the way that she wished that she could write.
Mhm.
And he speaks from his heart, and yet he's very reasoned. Like he was a lawyer, he's very reasoned. So I admire him. I admire Michelle Obama, the way she speaks. She's a wonderful speaker. And she uses empathy, and she just pulls people in,
Mhm.
and she's wonderful. So those are a few of my favorites, I guess.
That's wonderful. Yeah, great people, and for it invites us to pay more attention to the way they spoke, the way they engage the audiences. So, absolutely, great recommendations. And for those listeners who are thinking right now, gosh, I want to become a better communicator now, and like speaker, writer. What do you think what would you suggest are the first steps? Of course, I would recommend that they should grab a copy of your book, but in order to continue to get that feedback, or what do you suggest they do right now?
First of all, I would suggest try to get over the fear of it, because who's better than you? Nobody. So go out there, be yourself, bring the best of yourself to the world and to whatever communication you're doing. And it's a short life. So, who knows? I mean, I know, like today I could just go out there and slip on a banana peel, and that's the end. That's the end.
That's
So
terrible.
just, go for it. And what's the worst that can happen? You fail. Oh, well, how many people have failed in their lifetimes? And famous people. So just go out there and also think about, what is it as a person in this world? What is it you want to say and do? And if you keep repressing that, it's going to really hurt you, because you're going to live somebody else's life for you, not your own life. So live your own life and take chances. And yeah, what's the worst that can happen? The memo falls flat. Nobody reads it. And then you just do it. You go, okay, well, that didn't work. But then you can look at it and go, well, what did I like about it? What spoke to me? And you go, okay, well, keep that part and then maybe fix the other parts. Mm-hmm. And then always think about your audience. Mm-hmm. It's always about your audience, whoever your audience is. What are their needs? What are their wants? How are they feeling at that particular moment? And speak to that and go to that first, I'd say.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Mimi, for being here with me on the podcast today.
Yadi, thank you so much. Wonderful to be with you.
Thank you for listening today. Before you leave, make sure you go to my website, hardcoresoftskillspodcast.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Then go to the review tab and leave a review. It is the way to ensure this podcast is discovered by others. Remember that by learning soft skills, you make your hard skills work for you. See you next time.